stars in the sand.
Hello, I'm Patricia Gross. Welcome to Passion Time. I'm here with an old friend, an extraordinary woman, an outstanding Latina. This is Laura Murillo. She's the president and CEO of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, one of the largest chamber in the United States of America. Thank you so much for joining us.
Happy to be here.
And we don't live too far away from each other.
No,
so
we
that's
don't.
A good thing.
No, very convenient.
So Laura, the first question everybody gets is, how did you find your passion and how are you living your passion?
Well, I've always liked to work with people. I like to help people. Since a young child, I started working at 10 years old with my parents in their family Mexican restaurant. I always enjoyed it. From there, I went on, graduated from college, got my bachelor's, my master's, my doctorate. Worked at University of Houston for 15 years, helping students, helping parents in a variety of capacities, and then moved into fundraising. From there, I was recruited when I got my doctorate at Memorial Hermann, reported to the CEO, was an executive there. How I missed, though, being connected to the community the way I was when I worked at the University of Houston. So I got on the board of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and there had been 3 or 4 CEOs in 3 or 4 years. I realized that I really missed being with the community, and the opportunity presented itself. They recruited me. I've been there 10 years. At the end of the day, I know that I want to spend my life helping people. This has been a platform that has allowed me to do so, give back to the community, help people, and I wake up every day excited to go to help people. And it's wonderful. I feel that I'm blessed. Not everyone can say that they have a career that pays them well, that gives them the opportunity to engage. I've traveled all over the world representing Houston, representing this chamber, but we built it from scratch. The chamber had been in a very serious situation about 10 years ago when I came on board. That needed infrastructure. There was no money to pay me. It was a big risk to leave a great career in the Texas Medical Center to go to a nonprofit. But I believed in the people, Patricia. I knew there were enough people in Houston and enough people that I knew because I was born and raised here that I could find the right people to get engaged. I knew I had the passion to do the work, and I knew most of all that I'm very persistent. And fast forward, we are among the largest in the country. We have a television media platform. We raise approximately $2.5 million every year. We have a professional staff of at least 10 young, dynamic professionals. We established a foundation 5 years ago for young, emerging leaders to help them grow in their career. We've raised over $2 million for that initiative. And so all combined, I mean, this is definitely has been a phenomenal opportunity. Truly a privilege, Patricia, to do something I love and I have passion for.
Yeah, obviously. I think, right, one of the reasons we did this show is that if you're passionate about something, you tend to be successful at it.
And it makes the challenges of everyday life, of any business, of any career, you can say, you know what, that's okay. This will pass because at the end of the day, here are all the great things that will come for it. As a woman, chambers of commerce are predominantly male-dominated, an older group. I know when I was on the board of the chamber, there were probably, I was one of 2 women perhaps, and we've changed the face of the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Our board is an example. 40% of our board is non-Hispanic. Why? Because we need to be like Houston, and we need to be able to open doors and connect the dots. And it's not just in a silo with our own, but it's others. And it's CEOs of United Healthcare, of BBVA Compass, that have really helped change the trajectory of this little chamber of commerce that was ready to close its doors 10 years ago.
Right. Well, and that a lot of credit goes to you. Now, my question when I think of these things is, succeeding in a man's world. There's a lot of books that have come out, Lean In, with powerful CEO executives. Tell me, how do you deal with that? Because let's face it, it is still a man's world, no matter how anybody sees it.
Yes.
But you were able to succeed in leading an organization that is still male-dominated.
Yes. I will tell you that women face a huge double standard. Women are still the head of the household. We're still responsible for those children if we have them. And multitasking, I learned from my doctorate, when I was getting my doctorate. I think the biggest takeaway for me was being organized, learning how to multitask, and because I had a very strong father. My father was 6'5", tall, dark, and handsome, very intense, could be intimidating to most, but wasn't to me. I worked with him side by side from the time I was 10 until I was 21. And so I learned his mannerism. I learned how he walked into a room. I learned my confidence from my father. As the youngest of 9 siblings, I was probably the one who spent the most time with my father because he was at a different stage of life, which was as a businessman. He came to this country, Patricia. He was a tile mason, earning just 50 cents an hour, nothing, a laborer, and went on to continue to work in that field, eventually opened up a warehouse and was becoming more of an entrepreneur. Ultimately, as I said, by the time I was 10, he opened a Mexican restaurant. And even though he only had a 2nd grade education, Patricia, he was very smart. But I think the fact that I was a young child, a girl, who was so close to her father and spent a lot of time with him, it taught me how to talk to men. It taught me not to be intimidated by men. And it also taught me that one must be prepared to engage in conversations and listen and to be confident, but most of all, Patricia, to be prepared. And I still today, I travel and I have meetings, and typically I'm the only woman at the table. And that doesn't intimidate me. I listen to them, I learn from them, and when I say something, I know what I'm talking about. And if I disagree with them, I do it respectfully. But it is very difficult, and I've worked very hard to try to include more women at the table. Hence, 2 years ago, we set up a women's conference all around how to get to the table and what do you do once you are there, and how to continue to elevate the stature of women. And I take that very seriously. I think, again, I have had the privilege and honor to represent women, but it is sad that there's still not enough women at the table.
Tell me, and how do you think that could happen? I mean, you mentioned your dad having an impact on you, and I understand that generally, because I went to San Agnes, an all-girls school, I had to research also when I had to give a speech, that the self-esteem in women come from their father. And so it's very important, the father figure is very important. But how do you, today there's so much divorce, there's so many, kids growing up with a mom and not a dad. How do you, I'm sure you work with young women too.
Yes,
how
absolutely.
How do you coach them? Well,
first I think, going back to my father, he'd always say, surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. And that could be men or women. As I look at my life, even when I was 15 or 16 years old, the people I spent a lot of time with were not my peers. There were women who were 20, 30 years older. Dorothy Caram, Olga Solis, all of these really true pioneers, powerful women. And so, kind and willing to help. And so I really encourage, especially young women, to reach out of their circle, find people that they aspire to be like, find people that motivate them, that give them that aspiration to be better and to do more. And we need to help our children meet and identify with other people. Let's say your child wants to be an architect. Well, find a woman who's an architect. Find a man who's an architect. Expose them to that. Exposure, and also choosing our words carefully with our children by saying, you're a leader. You have a natural tendency to attract people, etc., and try to help them build on those talents. I think often it's really easy to say to kids, oh, you never wake up on time, or oh, your room's a mess. You become who your parents tell you you are a lot of times. You become who you think you want to be. And so it's like going to the gym. You've got to work at it. You've got to go. You've got to be consistent. And it does make a difference, Patricia. It absolutely makes a difference.
You mentioned two things, which is persistence and consistency, and that seems to be so important in life in general.
Yes.
In life, we all have our moments of truth. And I got this question one time, and I thought, what a great question, because automatically something came out of me. What comes out of you if I ask you, what was your moment of truth?
Patricia, probably for me, a couple of things, two critical points in my life. My moment of truth was being 18, being held I was carjacked and being held at gunpoint, and having my mother on the other seat of the car with a gun to my head. And the gun jammed as this car was being, taken from us. I remember pulling my mother out of the car through my door. When you are 18, you are invincible. You've got your whole life ahead. For me, that was an opportunity to really just embrace life and say, you know what, life is short. I've got things to do, God. Thank you for keeping me on this earth. Thank you for not allowing that tragedy to occur in front of my mother. There must be a purpose. You must have me here to do something. Tell me what that is and let me do it. So at 18, my truth was, life is short. You better go and do something with this second chance. When I was probably in my mid-40s, I went to the doctor and wasn't feeling too well, had a CAT scan and discovered that I had a tumor in the back of my head, Patricia, and it had all kinds of complications, etc. And as with any surgery, they tell you all of the devastating things that can happen to one. But I prayed and I said, you know, God, I feel like I still have things to do on this earth, and if you deem that I need to still be here, I know everything will be okay. And I remember going to the hospital to do the pre-check-in, and the woman who was admitting me doing all the paperwork, I was thinking as I was walking to her, God, just send me a sign that everything's going to be okay. And I went and I sat across from this woman, and her badge, her name was Hope. And I looked at her and I said, excuse me, what is your name? And she said, my name is Hope. And I said, really? Because I'm thinking, this is hospital like doing some weird stuff. My name is Hope. And I said, nice to meet you, Hope. And it was in that instance, Patricia, that I knew that everything was going to be fine. And here I am, 5 years later, no complications. Everything they thought might happen didn't. And it has re-energized me to continue to do work.
You know, Laura, it sounds like you have led a purpose-driven life, and that is really key.
It
right?
is, and it's so fulfilling.
For others,
it is.
When you do that, when you don't think about yourself all the time, and what's in it for me, and who am I, and what do I want, it's like, what can I do to help somebody else?
Yes.
And then your life starts going on the right
and you know what I have found, Patricia, and I'll remember this from Dr. Dorothy Caran, because I told her, she said, well, Laurita, what do you want to do? This is when I was 17 or 18. I said, I want to help people, but I want to make money.
Sure.
Don't mistake that. And she said, Laurita, follow your passion and the money will come. And interesting, Patricia, I have never applied for a job. I have been sought out. And so I say to young women especially, take care of the job you have, and the next one will find you. Do things right, whatever it is, do it to your best, and people will take notice. And I have been really blessed not only to have a phenomenal career that allows me to do so many unique things, but also as a woman be among the highest paid executives in nonprofit in this city. And so we don't have to sacrifice, Patricia, that as women, we need to set that bar high, very high, and figure out how to get compensated for the work that we do, to be bold and do compensation studies and understand what our peers are earning and what they're doing, and add value, and not be afraid to know our worth. Don't be afraid to know your worth. And it's not arrogance. It's, I have 3 degrees. I know my value. And I was able to work hard to show results. And I think all women, facts are facts, as someone has said to me. If you can prove that you bring value and you work hard, then all of those things will line up. But rest assured, it has not been easy. I've taken my share of hits and blows and you name it. Patricia, those first 2 years, imagine changing a culture that had been very the same for so long, to go in and say, okay, things are going to be different. To have men who believe that, yes, a woman can lead this organization, not as their assistant, not as their secretary, as their executive, as their CEO. And so I encourage women, get that education. Get that education. Work hard.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Laura. An honor, and I wish you the best. And please keep doing the great work that you do.
Thank you for all you do.
And thanks for watching Passion Time, and we'll see you next time.
Es para Venezuela.
Un poquito de...
Yo te mando después.